And like, don't get me wrong though, like Shorekeeper is a really good unit, and I think that you should have her, and especially if you don't have Verina, then you definitely should have Shorekeeper. But I think that Shorekeeper is one of like the kind of must pull characters. She really is. However, without her weapon, though, then she's very comparable to Verina. If you don't have her weapon, like an S0 Verina, she's very comparable. Whereas Verina can also be kind of, you can heal a bit easier with her. You can switch in, switch out a bit easier with her. Of course, Verina's buff can be applied regardless of your ultimate or not, your liberation. All you have to do is a heavy attack. All you have to do is one of these, and then her outro skill, of course. Whereas Shorekeeper is, her buff is primarily in her liberation, her ultimate, though it lasts for 30 seconds. So it's kind of like, it's both there. Shorekeeper's the only must pull in the right now. And I can't really say that for sure. Like, I think that Shorekeeper, especially if you're newer, is a must pull. Like if you haven't been playing maybe since the start or whatever, you don't have necessarily a strong roster, and maybe you don't have Verina. If you don't have Verina, then she's definitely a must pull.
Can you hear it?
But yeah, like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to downplay Shorekeeper, because Shorekeeper, she really is like, she is a indispensable unit, very, very good unit. So I'm not trying to downplay her at all, in any way, shape, or form. It's just more so in my situation. I don't necessarily. There's not a whole strong lot of benefit for me to get her. But for a newer player, there's much stronger benefit for you to get her.
I wonder how they're...
However, it depends on what characters you have right now as well. And like per se, like if you have Phoebe, if you're a new player and you pull for Phoebe, right? You might be better off. Especially if you're like free to play. If you're free to play, and you're a newer player and you pull for Phoebe, you might be better off skipping Shorekeeper so we can get the Forest Girl, because she's indispensable for Spectral Frazzle and Air Erosion builds, as she applies both of those on or off field. Her ultimate is like, she's like an Astra Yao in Xenoblade Zone Zero. So she's an all field and she plays a song, and that song hits the mob and applies stacks of Spectral Frazzle and Air Erosion every time it hits. So she could be all field and applying stacks. So she's like, she's damn near a must pull for someone who has Phoebe. Zanny is also a Spectral Frazzle user, DPS, or well, she's like a support to Phoebe actually, but she's Spectral Frazzle as well. So like, if you pull for Phoebe, you really want these characters coming up. And Cartethia is somewhere around the corner. You know she's Air Erosion, because we know that she uses
I will be there for everyone.
this Echo. That's why there's a question mark right here.
Leaving the past
The main slot by Rover Air or question mark, which is obviously Cartethia. So we know that she's going to utilize Air Erosion, because she's going to use this Echo. So it's like, it really depends on where you're at, like as a new player, and what characters you opted to pull on. If you didn't pull for Phoebe, then you probably would maybe be better off going for Shorekeeper, because you probably don't have that strong foundation for Spectral Frazzle and Air Erosion right now. So having Shorekeeper would be very beneficial. And like I said, especially if you don't have Arena, then definitely Shorekeeper, 100%. Have you been playing Wuthering Waves? Type mistake. I was asking how long have you been playing? I've been playing since it came out. But we have all these characters coming out that are going to be applying that. So that's why I say, like, it's a must pull for the Forest Girl, who can apply Spectral Frazzle and Air Erosion on and off field. So that's a must. And that's going to make the Air Rover team much more exciting as well. And then also Zanny can apply Spectral Frazzle as well. So it's going to have the team comps are going to change a good little amount. And I was talking on that before, because also Arrow Rover can be used as a healer. So Arrow Rover's kit is a healing kit. You can kind of use him as a sub DPS, or potentially as a main DPS as we get more characters. But he's also a healer. That's one of his main roles. So in a future team, it would largely look like Phoebe, Arrow Rover potentially as a healer, and then the Forest Girl or Zanny. So it's like, okay, like either way, I know that in these future teams, I'm not going to have Shorekeeper, which is why I was contemplating if I want to pull Shorekeeper or not. Because in these future teams with Spectral Frazzle and Air Erosion, I'm not going to be using her. There's no spot for her in these teams, realistically. So, unless, well, I guess if I'm not using like Phoebe, maybe if I'm using like a Rover and Shorekeeper and the Forest Girl, and I'm playing Rover as a main DPS, then that could be an option. But yeah, so I mean, it just depends on the comp that I'm using. But we have her weapon, but we don't have her. And so I was going to get Shorekeeper. Well, I was contemplating getting Shorekeeper, but looking at the characters I had, you know, Siakano, whatever the hell her name is, Zani, and of course Cartethia. Looking at those characters I had and looking at the team comps I'll be working in, I'm not sure how much I'll realistically be using her. So I was kind of like, you know, I have an S2 Verina. I do have Shorekeeper's weapon. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, realistically speaking, a lot of these teams coming up with how, you know, the Forest Girl can apply Spectro and Arrow Erosion, and how I'll be using that with the Arrow Rover. You know, a lot of these setups maybe will like her, Arrow Rover, and Phoebe, whereas Arrow Rover might play as a sub DPS slash healer, but it's also a huge buffer because of the stacks on the Arrow Erosion and Spectral Frazzle, playing both to the gameplay types on the DPS coming out there. So it's like, okay, well, I probably won't be using Shorekeeper realistically a lot in a lot of teams anyway, because I do have a Verina, so that suffices as well. So it was like, the more I thought about it, I was like, you know, Shorekeeper's a good character, and especially if you're just starting out, like if you're a newer player without a whole lot of different options and a whole lot of different resonance chains on like your 4 stars, then a really good option, of course. But I kind of was on the fence about getting her in the first place because she's not a necessity for me. I don't need her. She's more of a luxury. I don't need her though, you know. Shorekeeper is great for all teams. Correct, yeah. Shorekeeper is great for all teams universal, but however, with how I play and the characters that are coming out, that are capitalizing on Arrow Erosion and Spectral Frazzle, puts a very limited gameplay on Shorekeeper for me. Like the teams I have in mind and the teams I'm going to be testing out, Shorekeeper does not really have a place there. And of course, you know, one of the downsides about Shorekeeper is, of course, that of course, like, you know, Verina's very nice for quick swap teams. I am kind of more of a fast-paced player, so Verina's nice for that. Where you know, of course, you need the ult for Shorekeeper and whatnot. But you know, like I say, you know, it's like, don't get me wrong, she's a great character. She's a great support. Especially if you have her weapon. If you don't have her weapon, she's about the same as Verina, quite frankly. If you don't have her weapon. If you have her weapon, then yeah, obviously very good, very good. But she's not necessary for me. For the characters I have, for the teams I like to play in, for the style I like to play in, she's simply not necessary. So I don't really have any. Looking forward and looking at what characters are coming out, there's not a whole lot of reason for me to have her. Especially, I'm clearing this stuff just fine. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there's not a whole lot of reason for me to have her. I'm clearing this stuff just fine. I cleared the tower, the adversity tower, just fine. So there's not a whole lot of reason for me to really focus on getting her, because I would prefer to get a lot of the next 3 characters, assuming the 3rd character is going to be Cartethia, but Zanny and the Forest Girl. I would like to get them and possibly their weapons, maybe, but Cartethia as well. Like, I have much higher interest in those 3 characters than I do in Shorekeeper. Plain and simple. And so Shorekeeper's first banner, the reason why I did get her, I did try to pull her, but I lost the 50-50. And then because I lost the 50-50, Camellia's banner was right after that, which I was not going to miss out on Camellia. So I was like, okay, well, guess we're not getting Shorekeeper. So we got, make sure we got Camellia. So Shorekeeper S2 plus Sig. I still prefer Verina. Yeah, Verina's just a really good option, like I said, because she's much easier to, she's much more like quick and swift to play. She quick, quick swap, you get quick heals in, just bams. Quick heals and pop out. That gives a buff. It's like she's really good in that regard. Whereas Shorekeeper is kind of that large buff is really behind her ult. So if you in a situation where you don't have energy regen or whatever, or I mean you don't have your liberation, then now you kind of have to wait for that. If you're in that situation. Whereas Verena is just boom boom. It's just you're out, you're in, whatever. It's like it's real quick, real swift. So that's the benefit about Verena. So, and like I said, I have S2 Verena as well, same as you. So that's definitely beneficiary. And then like for other teams, also like say like I want to run my Carlota team. And my Carlota team, I always have the option of running Baji because like I said, I do have her weapon as well. And so I mean not her weapon, but I have Shorekeeper and she runs this weapon. She's the only healer who can run this weapon. Because she heals with her skill, so she's the only one who can activate it. So I do have that. She can run with that. And then of course, she's S6 as well. So she does get that Elatio damage bonus as well for this team. So it's like, you get these bonuses and stuff. So it's like, I don't overly need Shorekeeper. You feel me? Because of where I'm at with my characters and my 4 stars on the resonance chains. So it's not like a necessity. So that's kind of where that plays out. So
Spikesu content.